call this meeting of the Special Committee on the Criminal Justice Complex to order for July 22nd, 2021. It's 12:04, I believe, and 12:03. And Madam Clerk, would you take the roll?
Each member is acknowledging that they are located in Wayne County, Michigan, and attending the meeting via Zoom unless otherwise stated when I call your name. Commissioner Varga?
I'm present, zooming in from Houghton Lake.
Thank you. Commissioner Marecki?
Here.
Commissioner Baydoun?
Here.
Commissioner Kinlock? Chair Anderson?
Present.
You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Move the agenda.
We're moving on to item B, Chairman's remarks.
I'll hold off on my comments. I've got some lengthy questions that I had forwarded to the Sheriff's Department and to Corp Counsel, and I'll hold off until we get their update. I don't know if, let's see, maybe we'll go on to the next item on the agenda.
We're moving on to item C, approval of the June 17th, 2021 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Do I have
Move approval.
moved and supported? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Seeing none, minutes are approved for June 17th. Next on the agenda, Madam Clerk.
We're moving on to item D, new business. Item D1, an update from James Heath, Carter Fisher, Jay Shander, Bill Rath, and Victoria Innes Edwards regarding the status of the criminal justice complex.
James, would you like to start us off? And unless you know of somebody else that might want to go first on your group.
No, we'll start it off. Good afternoon, members of the committee, James Heath Corporation Counsel. I'd like to invite Victoria Innes Edwards to the virtual table, as well as James Carter Fisher. We also have, instead of Bill Rath, we have Bill Lawhorn, who is with CGL as well. He is going to be with us today, addressing the matters that Bill and Jay previously were. I don't know if there's anyone from the Sheriff's Office that I see on the call now. If I'm missing someone, please call out. Perhaps they'll be joining us later, but I'd like to ask Tori, Carter, and Bill to introduce themselves at this point to the commission.
Good afternoon, Carter Fisher with Wayne County Corporation Counsel.
Victoria Innes Edwards, Director, Wayne County's Human Relations, Business Inclusion Division, part of Corporation Counsel.
And good afternoon, I'm Bill Lawhorn. I'm a Vice President of Planning and Design with CGL Companies, acting as the owner's rep for Wayne County on the criminal justice project.
So, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you this month. You have received, I believe, the general construction update. It's not all that different from last month's, and that's a good thing because if it were different, that would mean something had gone wrong or fallen apart. And so we are continuing to move steadily.
What are you hearing at this moment in terms of reaction to?
And there is one milestone that like to mention, and that's the near completion of one of our first internal elevators that will is just a sign of progress and will continue to allow us to work inside of the facility as we go forward. So if there's any specific questions about construction progress, we can answer those questions, and perhaps Bill can shed some light on things if need be. But that report is relatively self-explanatory. A couple points I do want to address initially in my comments, Mr. Chairman. We have been talking for some while about the $2.385 million settlement with the Michigan Indigent Defense Commission. The committee will recall that that has to do with confidential meeting spaces within the ADF and the courthouse. The state of Michigan requires that there be enough confidential meeting spaces to accommodate indigent defendants. That was a requirement that we knew about at the beginning stages of the design for the facility. The many or some other communities went ahead and retrofitted their existing facilities. That would have meant retrofitting Frank Murphy Hall of Justice and Jail Division 2, which would have been extremely expensive and cost prohibitive. We had discussions with the MIDC very early on, assured them that our design would include the confidential meeting spaces that would satisfy the act passed by the state. They were happy to allow us not to spend that money on facilities that would be raised in the near future, but instead to invest those funds into the new criminal justice complex. We did do that, and just as by way of background, when those funds were expended in this current year, we submitted a reimbursement request, if you will, from the state to pay for the cost of those rooms. Our owner's rep from CGL, and as well as other folks working within the construction project were extremely helpful in allowing us to kind of isolate what those costs were. We submitted a payment request for approximately $4.9 million, and we were rejected completely by the MIDC. The act allows us, if we get a negative response on a funding request from the MIDC, it calls for a mediation process, which we entered into, and the award in that was $2.385 million. The MIDC board approved the amount, but it did take us several months to work out some of the details of the settlement award. And primarily, we wanted to ensure that any sort of settlement would not be given on the front end, but taken out of the MIDC grants that, as this commission knows, we have been receiving for the last several years. And so we wanted to make sure that this was, in fact, $2.385 new dollars that were not going to be taken away on the backside. We built in protections that we are satisfied with to that extent. And we have finalized the agreement, which is being placed into TCM this week and will be transmitted to the full commission for settlement to be discussed and evaluated in the normal course of business. But as this committee knows, as it relates directly to the CJC, I just wanted to give you that update, Mr. Chairman, on that.
Appreciate that. Any update, also update, if I could follow up on a previous item that's come up, is the, I believe we had a sort of a brief discussion about the cafeteria and the vendor. Pardon me, Carter, if I don't remember exactly right, but I know you gave us a brief report last month that I believe they were very close, if not complete, the discussions and negotiation.
Yeah, Commissioner Anderson, we have actually reached an agreement with that vendor. So it should be getting processed through TCM and coming to you shortly. We're just waiting on a little bit of paperwork in terms of certificates of insurance and things of that nature, but you should be getting that very shortly.
Okay, very good. And sorry, James.
Oh, no problem at all. No, thank you. That was one of the items on our list, so it's very appropriate for you to bring it up. We've discussed over the last several months the several hundred items that we have identified as required changes to the overall design of the facility. And when I say required changes, what I mean by that are changes which are necessary for our end users to operate effectively. That was after a long, exhaustive process led by CGL, in which we talked with all of our end users and went through all of the designs with an eye towards the basis of design, and determine which things that we thought needed to be added. We communicated that list to ROC some while ago. As you can imagine, it does take some time, perhaps a little longer than we wanted, for them to evaluate that list and give us their response, which they have done in the aggregate. And so we are still expecting very shortly specific responses to the individual items that are placed, and their response as to which items they believe are solely the responsibility of ROC, those items which they believe to be the responsibility of the county. And then we're going to have a good old-fashioned negotiation on those points. I will tell you that we feel, prior to submitting that list, we did our own evaluation, and we feel confident in our position that the items that we believe ROC is in fact responsible for, they are responsible for, but that's, part of the negotiation process that we will be engaged in. And so as that continues to move, we certainly will keep you abreast of it, but just want you to know that we have made some progress in that regard. That has been a painstaking review process. It's a lot of work, and I think that if you promise not to tell them that I said it, I think it represents one of CGL's finest moments in assisting with getting that work done. And so as we hear more from ROC, as we enter into some of those negotiations, we will keep you abreast, certainly to the extent that there are change orders that might be required. I mean, we're talking about how much of a change. Certainly we believe that there will be some, but we will bring those to the committee that we have established, Commissioner, and work within the rules that we have to get those, whatever they are, approved. But we will obviously continue to negotiate in a pretty hard fashion with them, just to make sure that we don't spend any money that we don't need to. One thing that we don't talk about quite often with the jail, I think probably because we're so focused on the construction aspect, are the transition teams that have been established. I think it's appropriate, since we have Bill Lawhorn here today, he is kind of leading up the transition effort from CGL. And, Bill, if you don't mind, I will ask you to give just a very high level explanation of the process, very briefly, just to let the commissioners know kind of what we're doing on the second track, not just the construction side of the project, but also on the transition side.
Certainly, and I'd be happy to. I appreciate the opportunity. So the transition and activation process.
Would you identify yourself again for the record? And for
excuse me, for the record, Bill Lawhorn with CGL Companies.
Thank you.
One of the important components to constructing a new building is planning your operation. Each entity having to plan what they're going to do, how their operation is impacted by the design of a facility. So we've embarked upon an 8-phase process to get each of the entities, each of the groups moving into the criminal justice complex, ready for that transition and move-in process. That begins with looking at the overall current operations, what everybody does in their current buildings, comparing it to the new design, and identifying areas that will change in the new design based upon the physical layout. Understanding what those changes and how they impact operations is an important task to go through, identify procedural changes, get those procedural changes developed, so all the employees moving into that building on day one know what's expected of them, know how to do their daily functions, so there's a seamless transition. Once the procedures are developed, we get into a view of staffing, make sure if there's a staffing implication, whether up or down, that it's identified prior to the opening of the facility so it can be addressed in advance. Training areas that, new operations that go into that facility, new equipment, making sure that all employees prior to day one are educated in how to operate equipment, how the security systems will function within that building. And then ultimately, we start to schedule out a move management plan of how to get every person, every employee from point A to point B, making sure all their belongings end up in the right spot, nothing gets misplaced. And we get into the process of getting equipment set up, testing it, calibrating it, making sure people understand it, getting people familiar with the overall building, ready for move-in. So that's just a very high-level overview of the transition process.
Thank you, Bill. And he'll be here if there's any questions following our comments, Commissioner. Yesterday, the county, and by that I mean our executive team, procurement, joined with the Wayne County Sheriff's Office and CGL to discuss what will be an upcoming solicitation for jail video and phone visitations. We recognize that although we've got some time before we move in, we want to get a head start on making sure that the solicitation meets the needs of the inmates, meets the needs of the design of the facility, and allows the county to continue to offer those services at an affordable price. So we've made the decision to extend the existing vendor in our jails until we move out of our existing facilities. That will, and quite frankly, there will probably be some small a bit of overlap with the existing contract and the new contract that we intend to enter into. And that's just because that is one aspect, Commissioner Anderson, that you just cannot have a drop off in services with. And so we just want to make sure that we have all of our bases covered in that regard. We recognize that the new facility will allow us a greater amount of flexibility with respect to technology. And that just means greater services offered to the inmates who are there in terms of their ability to communicate with the outside world, friends and family, their ability to communicate with jail medical staff and others regarding their needs in that regard, their ability to communicate with the Wayne County Sheriff's staff if there are any problems that need to occur, and frankly, to experience some level of entertainment, hopefully, as well. And so those are all services that are now offered by a number of the vendors in this space who we will be reaching out to and working with. Just a few quick points, and I'll ask Bill if he wants to join in, because this is also an area where from the CGL team, he probably has the most expertise, I think. The new facility contemplates primarily all video visits for the inmates. There are spaces planned within the facility where people can come to the jail and engage in those video visits. However, we think that time will show that the vast majority of people who want to visit their loved one who's in the facility will probably be able to do so, will probably opt to do so from their home computer or from some sort of mobile device in some way. And I'm talking about not just video, but also telephone as well. We do envision, and one of the trends, I should say, throughout facilities across the country is to do just that. And there will be undoubtedly a number of tablets which are going to be provided to the inmates so that they can conduct those phone calls, engage in that level of recreation, if you will, with movies and that sort of stuff that's available, also engage in video visits. And so we are on the same page with the sheriff in terms of going with kind of best in class services in that regard. So our next step is to prepare the solicitation. Aaron Wagner from procurement is working with CGL and the sheriff's office on that. And so we hope to have something on paper that we can put out on the street this summer. is our goal. And, you know, I know you've raised a number of kind of security issues and the like. You know, Bill can talk to some of that at this point, but it may even be more effective that once we kind of get the menu of services that we're going to look for from a vendor and starting those conversations, we might even bring the selected vendor here to this committee to talk about some of those issues in greater detail. But I do assure you, Commissioner, that this is state of the art. This is where jails and prisons are going on state, local, federal levels all over the country. And, you know, I'm happy that this is going to, I think, be a value add for more of our inmates as we look to the future. Bill, anything you want to add to that?
Again, Bill Lawhorn with CGL Companies. You pretty much said everything that needed to be said, other than the fact that, you know, one thing we learned during the pandemic is everybody's adapted to video visitation. I mean, we do it even with this meeting, becoming the new commonplace of how we interact with one another. You know, there's two philosophies on the use of video visitation in jails. You know, some find it that disconnect from the in-person meetings, which is conducted with a divider wall. And others feel that this becomes the new norm. You know, you can see your loved one on a video camera, as opposed to bringing especially small children into an institution that has that traumatic effect of seeing, you know, that loved one, that parent, you know, behind or in custody. So this becomes the new norm of seeing them through a video monitor. From the pandemic, a majority of the agencies across the country have adapted to video visitation as the new norm. And it's actually given more opportunities for incarcerated individuals to meet with their loved ones, communicate with their loved ones, and it's kind of expanded those opportunities.
Good. Just to butt in here for a second, I wanted to acknowledge that our other committee member, Commissioner Kenlock, has joined us. And also we have our commission counsel. She's Felicia Johnson is online, and Mark Abbo is here also. I'm still waiting for someone from the Sheriff's Department to get online, but hopefully if you're out there, maybe you can just let us know that you're present. But anyway, continue on. I don't know if you want to go on to Jay or to Victoria.
Yeah, just one other point, and then I will get out of
Okay.
everything. Facility right now is planned for 2,280 beds for the site, and I know that there's been some discussion or questions, and not just coming up today, but as we've gone along, about the value, if any, in reducing that number. Our position from the beginning, and remains the same today, is that there is no financial savings that the county would realize from doing so. As you know, Mr. Chairman, from reading the construction reports as we've gone along, you know, the design and the major parts of the design and the construction of the facility have primarily been set. We're just working on some interior things. The things that would go into a jail cell are going to be fixtures that right now ROC is responsible for providing. You know, they're affixed to the cell, and so to, you know, have construction on those cells stop would mean a savings to the developer, and they would be the ones to realize that, and the county would not. That does not mean, however, that there are not savings to using the certain areas of the jail at particular times, as opposed to closing down other areas. For instance, you know, the numbers that we've been given is that 10 to 15% of the facility is always going to be left open for 10 to 15% above what your population is going to be left open for, you know, complicated issues with respect to classification of inmates, when there are needs for, if there's an emergency in a particular area, maybe an area needs to be, completely power cleaned. We've seen that, for instance, in our facilities in the COVID area, where if there's an outbreak of some sort, the need to move people somewhere else while maintenance is done in the area. We've had issues, and I'm gonna claim that we're not gonna have plumbing and flooding and all those sorts of issues in a brand new facility. But as you can imagine, when those issues do come up, you do have to move those inmates to a different place. And so you don't use every bed at all the time when you're in the facility. But to the extent that we are able to kind of quarter off areas, which is exactly what has been done in our existing facilities from time to time, we do recognize operational savings. And so, the sheriff's office may need to deploy fewer people on staff if we can consolidate and the like. And so there are real savings. And I want to make clear that we are going to be purposeful. And this is really what the sheriff does with respect to the space that we use in the facility. But to limit our ability right now would not be of any sort of real financial benefit to the county at this stage. One thing I will also raise, though, is that because we are moving into a state-of-the-art facility, we were prior to the pandemic, we were engaged with conversations with local communities. For instance, Highland Park has had discussions with us about they're not really having a lockup at all and using our facility for that. They had a desire to do so even at the existing facilities, and certainly will do so once the new facility is up and running. There are federal prisoners which are, for a variety of reasons, are not housed in our current facilities. However, it's been made clear to me, and we've had discussions, that once we kind of move to this state-of-the-art facility, I am positive that the feds will want to house some of the inmates that they have awaiting trial in our facility as well. And there may even be other counties or other communities who would like to do the same. And so I fully expect that a portion of the beds which we have in the new CJC will likely be allotted for non-Wayne County Jail prisoners. And so that's something that I'd like you to keep in mind as well when we talk about the available beds that we have.
James, I just wanted to, just a minute to interrupt you. I apologize. Chief Dunlap is online now, has been for a few minutes. But he, anytime, Chief, that you want to make a comment or address something, please step in, and we'll certainly want to hear from you. I know, I think one of the things that's, as you got online, was being addressed is about one of the questions that I had forwarded. First of all, let me back up a little and say that Commissioner Varga had asked the question about the communications between prisoners and their families, and I appreciate, James, you touching on that. And that was one of the questions, too, that I sent on behalf of Commissioner Varga. And is there anything, Chief Dunlap, that you wanted to add to that about the video, use of video tablets and things like that for communication between prisoners and their family? Is there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, good afternoon, Commissioner. First of all, I want to apologize for my tardiness. Been jumping around from meeting to meeting today, and I wasn't able to find the link. Director Harp helped me out, and so now I'm here. I did not hear what Attorney Heath mentioned about the video, but I should tell you that our inmates have been able to communicate with their family ever since we first shut down in March. at the beginning of the pandemic, in that we initially provided opportunities for them to both do video visit and phone calls without cost. And then that lasted for almost a year before they started back at a point where the inmates have to pay. And that practice is in place today. They still have the ability to visit via video or visit by phone.
Yeah. And Chief,
Okay.
the only thing I raised was that we are going to be going out for a solicitation for vendors who may service the new complex, and we will be in conversations with them under the leadership of your department with the kind of array of services that might be offered to the inmates once we move into the new complex, and we'll be negotiating costs and the like as we go forward.
Great.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yes, I had a question. Some years ago, the county used to use Better Made, I guess they had Better Made potato chips were a vendor for the county, in particular the county jails. And for some reason, I remember because I had a radio show and I was talking about the fact that you had a Detroit-based business with a long history in the city, and they weren't, and for some reason, the county discontinued utilizing Better Made as a vendor, in particular for the jail. So I'm not sure where and whom would I be able to raise and ask that question. So I was wondering, as the new jail is being constructed, new services are going to be delivered there. What is the opportunities for any other local businesses to participate in some of those operations?
Mr. Kinlock, I think this might come up, it won't come up under Victoria, I don't believe at all, but the vending, I'm not sure, maybe James, do you want to address that? Because it is going to be outside of what Victoria is going to be talking about, I think.
Well, Mr. Kinlock, I will tell you, during COVID, I've been eating too many Better Made potato chips. To that, what I'll say though is that with respect to food service, that's not something that I'm an expert in, and I think that that's something that we should raise with Aaron Wagner from procurement. We are working through issues with what we call centralized services and how we work procurement in the entire complex. So I think that's not a specific question that we can address today, but as we move forward, I can make sure that we have Aaron on board to give you an update on kind of how that process is going to work, unless anyone from the sheriff's office, Chief Dunlap, or I think I see the undersheriff on as well, would like to address that.
Thank you.
This is Chief Dunlap. I think you hit it right. That's something that is handled by purchasing. When the RFP goes out, vendors will have the opportunity to apply.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner. I did want to back up just a little bit, James, and since Chief Dunlap wasn't on the call at the time, there's one of the things that I had asked, because I think there was one of the questions that was submitted to me to ask was about the cost to furnish and equip each cell in the new jail. And then is there potential savings by not finishing each cell at this time? And I think you addressed that essentially saying that at this point, we're at a certain point where the costs will be coming from rock, is that not correct?
No, that's the gist of it. But as to that point, I think Chief Dunlap is in the best position to address kind of how classification issues and other issues with moving folks around make it such that we do need kind of a cushion in terms of availability of space and beds within the facility.
Don't we
Sure.
handle some from the US Marshals? Don't we have space that we have to provide for them?
So Chief Dunlap here. Right now, we are not housing any inmates for the U.S. Marshal. They took their inmates out of the jail prior to COVID and indicated that they might want to contract with us again when the new facility is open. With regards to finishing and not finishing sales, I would just, present this picture to all of you. We currently have just over 1,200 inmates in the jail right now. And we have 17, almost 1,800 inmates out on tether. And we do anticipate that, as the courts open back up, which they just opened this Monday, just 2 courts, the number that is in custody will grow, probably not back to what it was so much prior to pandemic, but I would venture to say if you took just 500 of the 1,800 that's out on tether, that would put us right in the neighborhood of approximately 1,800 people in custody. And with that, as Attorney Heath was saying, we have to have space not only for classification and movement, cleaning and maintenance, and then you also have to think about programming. And so we would pretty much be hard pressed for space if not all of the jail was finished before we move into it.
So, Chief Dunlap, is there a possibility too that while we have a lot of communities within Wayne County that contract with different county jails to hold their prisoners until their court date comes up, and one of them I know of is Westland in Isabella County. And is there a possibility, or will the department be looking into getting the rates comparable or competitive with those out-state jails because one of the complaints that I've always heard is that, the taxpayers of Wayne County are certainly paying for the jail, and they ask why do we have to pay more for a Wayne County prisoner, a prisoner to be kept at Wayne County, an inmate, instead of another jail? And is there a possibility, or would you be doing like a study to see if there's some way to reduce that rate to make it more competitive?
Well, certainly the county makes the decision about cost, not the sheriff's office. And so I don't want to try to speak for the county, but I will say this. I know that the CEO, Evans, is looking at different ways that we can help out local communities. And I only know that through rather an informal conversation where he recently asked us as of yesterday to explore various options that might exist to do just that, provide holding space for some of the local communities. And so myself, Under Sheriff Jafer, and the sheriff are planning on having a meeting very soon to look at those kind of options.
Okay. And I think,
I'm sorry, Commissioner.
I was just going to say, I think Officer, Chief Jafer, I think, is online too. Or if you are, could you say hello or whatever?
Hello, Commissioner and everyone. Thank you. I'm here listening. I think Chief Dunlap is doing a great job. He is the chief of jails, and he's hit the nail on the head so far and everything. So I concur with him. Like Chief Dunlap stated, we met with CEO Evans yesterday, and to answer your question, Commissioner, the CEO is intimately involved and very interested in providing them services if we can handle.
Okay, I appreciate that. James, did you have something else you wanted to mention right at the moment?
No, please continue.
I was just going to try to tick off some of these questions to get those out of the way. And I know Victoria has a report, and then the Chief Dunlap, I think was, maybe he might want to add some things, but he might want to answer some of these questions that I was given.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, could I just, to the point
Sure.
of what we were discussing? Thank you. So I'm glad to hear that conversation's beginning about the prisoner, whatever you call retention, by the local communities. But I know there was a comment made if they can handle it, which I think's been the problem in the past. But the millage covers those monies, right? Is that correct? From the local communities? So a lot of the local communities are paying the millage and then paying an extra fee, like to go to Ionia or other outstate prisons. Am I right about that?
I don't know if, and somebody else would have to answer that. I don't know if I see Mark Abbo was on, at least I know he was online a few minutes ago, and I'm not sure if he knows, but, or even James Heath, if the millage that's paid is supposed to cover that.
Mr. Chair, this is Mark Abbo. I am not aware of that, but I can explore it.
Okay, it just rings a bell to me that a lot of these communities, even though we're paying the millage, they're like paying double by taking them to another prison for holding. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
that's all I have.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, if I might add, there were studies done years ago about the efficiency of a new jail. I think that once this one gets built, if you're looking at just a cost model of what it would cost and what we would have to charge for, housing inmates from other facilities, our cost may go down. I mean, my recollection was that this will save us between $11 and $15 million a year operationally. So hopefully our costs will go down and we will be able to pass some of that savings on to other local jurisdictions.
Right, and we also have a neighboring county that sounds like it's not going to be building their jail in Macomb County. So that might be additional people that we could help them out. But, I'd like to see us at least help our Wayne County communities out first.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Can I jump just in terms of one issue that I know you want to raise, and I did check into it, and it relates to the Hamtramck facility, and there were some specific questions regarding the long-term plan there, and so I did speak with Khalil Rahal, who, as you know, is kind of the county's efforts with respect to real property and those sorts of things about that, and made him aware of this, of the question. And I am requesting that you allow us to address kind of those longer term issues with respect to what's going to happen with that site in a more comprehensive and direct way, as opposed to this particular committee, because I just don't want to speak out of turn in terms of those plans. But I do want you to know that that I did look into it, and I just think there'll be greater efficiency in it being discussed in more context for the future. But certainly, kind of how the facility is being used now is something that I know that members of the sheriff's office will be able to address. But that kind of long-term selling, remaining, or those sorts of things are issues that have not fully been worked out. And so anything that I would say right now would be premature. You also raised a question about bonding for that. I've spoken with our CFO or have a question out to the CFO regarding that. And that's something that I should be able to, hopefully by tomorrow, provide you an answer with in writing, so that you can pass it on to other members of this committee or whomever on the larger commission wanted to address that issue. So I just wanted to make that point with respect to those two particular questions, Commissioner.
Okay, and so the things on the Hamtramck jail, I'll wait on those issues. Did Khalil indicate how soon we might have an answer to with some of those questions? As far as,
They're ongoing discussions. I couldn't give you a timetable, but when we give you the written response, I'll hopefully be able to provide you with something in that regard.
okay. Let's see, I believe that covers most of the questions. I mean, because there was a number of them that was had to do with the Hamtramck jail and about the bond, about the the $1 million that's paid to the city of Hamtramck in lieu of taxes. So if you could take those questions and then provide us an answer back, I'd appreciate it in writing.
Yes, sir.
And representatives that are here, Mr. Dunlap and Mike Jafar, if you, the two of you have anything else that you'd like to add as far as your projections. I think Sheriff Dunlap is already, or Captain Dunlap has already indicated that he sees the population probably increasing. And I know with the things that we see happening out on the roads and the craziness that's happening out on the streets, that we're likely to see more people incarcerated because of that and waiting for their court date. But it's, I don't know if you had anything else that you'd like to add, either of you from the Sheriff's Department. That would be it. Right now would be a great time.
Under Sheriff Jaffer here. Thank you, Commissioner.
Sure.
I would like to add in relation to Commissioner Marecki's statement about assisting the other cities, municipalities in this county. I can reassure you that I'll speak on Sheriff Washington's behalf. He is definitely in favor of assisting other communities. And I just want to reiterate, I emphasize on if it can be done because there's a lot of moving parts. Like Chief Dunlap stated, now that we're getting back to normalcy, depending on how long that lasts, hopefully it lasts forever. It's going to be interesting to see how our jail population goes. But I agree. I mean, if we can assist and need to assist other communities in this county, I'd rather see them delivering prisoners to us than anywhere else, just for the record.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Chairman,
Yes, who's speaking?
this is Felicia. I'm sorry, I was trying to jump in with regards to the discussion for the jail and the jail beds. So 2 points. One, with regards to the millage, the county does have a specific millage related to the jails. However, that millage does not speak to the number of beds the communities are entitled to. The jail millage talks about the acquisition and construction and operation of, I think it's jail facilities and juvenile facilities, if I'm not mistaken. And then it also refers to certain programs and how some of the funds should be used for programming within the jail. In addition to that, the county does have an ordinance. And there's an ordinance that speaks to a jail set aside, the number of beds to set aside for in the jails. And then there's a per diem rate that's established in that ordinance. If, and I don't remember all the details, but if, for example, they are housed because of local ordinance charges, there's a per diem associated with that. As some of you may recall, there was some discussion regarding how to split those charges if they were in the county jail for both state and local charges, or and so there was some discussion amongst the commission and some movement on that ordinance, I believe, a few years back. So I just wanted to add to that discussion that those that with regards to the subject matter of the actual current millage, and then just remind everyone that there is that jail bed ordinance out there. If they're looking to address issues in the future related to it, you may also have to look at the ordinance that's currently on the books.
Well, thank you for that, Felicia.
Thanks. Thank you. James, did you have anything else, or either Chief Dunlap or anyone else from the Sheriff's Department? Mike, if you have anything else.
I do not. The only point is Victoria has some comments that I think it's appropriate for her to make. At this point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Victoria, do you want to?
Yes,
Thanks
thank
for
you.
hanging on there.
No problem. Victoria Edwards, Director of the Human Relation Business Inclusion Division. Wanted to kind of give you an update. We do quarterly reporting. We are now in the year 2021, second quarter for reporting. I sent over a brief update along with a few snapshots of the information. I always like to try to put the information in context of where we are in the goals. And before I speak on some of the goals, I want to kind of somewhat answer Commissioner Kinlock's question too. Yes, Aaron and his group with procurement will put the bids out and they will procure the items. But as a side note, because I heard you say other opportunities, there are FF&E opportunities as well as service opportunities such as kitchen, grass cutting, that kind of thing that will be coming out of the shop later on through Aaron and the procurement group. So all of those opportunities are going to be considered. And that is coming further down the line. And we are, of course, looking for Wayne County businesses. And Detroit is part of Wayne County. Again, working with CGL Source Blue, which is our partners with our procurement team. We had an FF&E workshop, as we talked about, early April. We will be having a secondary FF&E workshop later on, end of summer, beginning of fall. And that workshop is going to be more of a pre-bid style. What we're hoping to do at that point is we are going to have a better list of what bids are coming out, when they're coming out for FF&E. And we'll be sharing that information with those businesses that have been registered and to make sure that they're prepared, they can ask questions. So as soon as the bid hits the street, they have an opportunity to bid. That is why we're doing a lot of the prep. There will also be, and I will be sharing with all of the commissioners, like when we have a workshop, I share it and ask all the commissioners to get the information. They can then trickle it down within their communities. There will also be a pre-qualification flyer for any businesses that are interested in the commodities that are listed to be on the FF&E list. We want to get them pre-qualified. That flyer will be coming out next week. I will share it with you. It literally has a live link that says click here. So on the flyer, it'll show all the different commodities that we're looking for in the areas. They can click right on the link. It'll take them into the pre-qualification with Source Blue. And that's how we're getting everybody on the list. So there is a continual effort working with the owner's advocate, working with Source Blue, our procurement team, to try to get those in Barton Malow, get those numbers up. Then that'll kind of roll into the compliance piece. For the quarter right now, we're in the second quarter. For overall Wayne County resident participation, we're at 37%. The overall final goal is 51% on the project. What I have noticed for the last few reports, we hover back and forth between 36 and 38%. Putting that on the table because we're getting a little bit of a momentum because we do have trades that are coming on, but also I believe in being proactive. So if we continue to have the trade coming where we're going to get more, like we're getting iron workers, we're now getting people who are putting up drywall. In a minute, you're going to get paint. So the more trades you have, the wider bandwidth for additional residency. However, I have put the question out to Barton Malow, asking their insight on where they feel the numbers are going. And if there are any issues, we'd like to be proactive versus reactive while we have not finished the build. So that I will report on the findings on the next go round, but I believe in putting that out early. I don't think it's a horrible job that we're doing because you do have to keep sometimes everything in perspective. We've got a lot of projects going on, but I want to know what are the efforts going forward that are going to continue to push these numbers upward. So that is something I've already asked. Where there is a lot of good momentum and movement is when you look at the total contract compliance report for spend. So they were looking at a spend data of 30%. Right now, they're already at 55% of the total spend thus far is being spent with Wayne County-based certified companies. And why I specifically say certified companies, we know that these companies have been operating within the county. They've come through our system. We vetted them in their county base, not just someone who happens to have a one-off office in Wayne County. They are county-based businesses. So we are at 55% of the total spend right now, and that is $158,606,121.67. Those dollars are cycling in and contracting with our county-based businesses, and I think that is something, you know, we should be excited about. Then within the spend, the Barton Mallow, our builder, has put their own goal that they're trying to reach of 11% for women and minority spend. So we are going up slightly. You keep looking at it popping up by about 1%. So right now for the minority businesses, we're at 5%. For women-owned businesses, it's like 2.2, a little bit under 3%. One of the things I do want to point out, I'm a very silver lining type person. Sometimes if you look at 1%, you're like, 1%, we didn't do a whole lot. But if you look at what that 1% movement meant for county-based, that 1% moving the needle for county-based, that was over $27 million. That 1% movement within the minority spend was an additional $3.5 million. So it's not just a quarter here and a quarter there. We are seeing some significant boost. Do we want more? Always. You know, go big or go home. We want this really jam-packed. But right now, just wanted to understand and let you guys understand where we're going. We still have bandwidth in the FF&E, and we are making sure that we are targeting county-based women and minority-owned businesses for these opportunities. And again, there will be an additional flyer coming out. I will share it with everyone, share it with all the commissioners. They then can share that with their constituents in any business that they know of. We want to get them registered and on the radar. So that's the overall reporting. I am available for any questions and or comments or something you need me to look at. You're on mute.
Thanks. Does anyone have any questions at this time? Any committee members have questions at this time? Anything, sounds like not. I would go to Mark Abbo. I don't know, Mark, if you have any questions about the financial side or anything that you might have that you'd like to get an answer to.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I noticed on the report, in the last paragraph, we talked about relatively few procurement packages left. Do we actually know what percentage of cost we have remaining on contracts that need to be let? Because to me, that's a good sign that we're closing in, and without major budget adjustments, we're probably closing in on being pretty close to what the original budget was. And I know that there was a cost share proposal in the original arrangement with ROC. I'm wondering if we're looking to make that computation about whether we'll be getting any kind of reduction in cost.
I will find that out for you. We're actually have asked for a update on the spend and what contracts actually have been left. So I will get you the exact amount that are left. Also too, there is also the contracts for, you're specifically speaking on the build side of it, or are you also talking about the just the build side, Mark?
Yeah, just the build
side. Okay. I will get that for you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is that all you have, Mark, right now?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Commission Counsel Felicia, did you have anything additional that you wanted to ask?
I do not, thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything else from your team, Victoria? Or James, I think, had to get offline for another meeting he's got to be on.
Is Carter, I'm not sure if Carter had a quick update. I think he had a quick one.
Okay, did you want to do that, Carter? Then
Sure, thank you.
Things up.
Yeah. So yeah, mostly what we're looking at coming up is a few contracts that'll be coming to the commission for review. And so I just wanted to highlight a couple of those, and we'll be sending along courtesy copies at the time that they're entered into TCM, so that you have more time to review them. But in addition to the cafeteria contract that we've already mentioned, we're also procuring a group that's going to help us with our furniture, fixtures, and equipment procurement. So they're experienced in doing facilities of this type and this size, and they're going to add a little bit of backup to Aaron Wagner's team and work directly with the county and CGL on securing, especially inmate furniture, but also furniture for the courts, for the sheriff's office, for those sorts of things. And then in addition to that, there's a old DTE substation that was on the site or actually I should say an old Detroit Lighting Authority substation that was on the site. And Detroit has shifted its substations to DTE's possession. They've shut down most of them, including this one. And so the substation is now turned off, but it's sitting right out in front of what would be the court building. And so we're currently procuring a company to come in and demolish that substation and then have Rock pave it over for added parking to the front of our building. So you'll be seeing what we project to be a no-cost contract to demolish that building coming your way as well.
Did you say a no cost?
No cost, correct. It's the company that does this is actually one that deals with these substations throughout the city, and they regularly partner with the city of Detroit on these things, and they typically do this at no cost or for the value of the scrap materials in the substation. There's a few transformers and items like that, and then there's structural steel in the building, and they in return for that scrap value, they handle all the environmentals and other concerns. So
I thought I saw Mark Abel, his eyes twinkle when he heard no cost. I don't know. But that's always good to hear.
That is good to hear.
Well, I appreciate the update, James, and our Carter, to avoid confusion. But I don't know if anyone else has anything else they want to add at this time. Was that your total of what you needed to cover, Carter?
that was it. Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
I appreciate it. And thank you all for being here, and especially representatives, from the Sheriff's Department. I think we'll probably have more questions as time goes on, but as we get down to the details of how the move is going and everything going as far as getting people in the places they're going to occupy. And I just can't imagine the logistics of handling something like that from all those different users that'll be there. But it's going to be interesting from once we start getting to that point. But
Mr.
anyway,
Chair?
Yes, Terry.
Before you end, I just got a text, which is interesting. I just want to read.
Okay.
The person that texted me said that the county garnered support for the jail millage by agreeing to do the ordinance, which sets aside 360 beds for local communities, 180 for Detroit, and 180 for out county courts. So just that's something just to add that I just was notified about.
Okay.
So thank you.
So that's the original jail millage, the original.
Yeah, and this is an ordinance. They garnered the support from the communities for the millage by agreeing to do the ordinance, which sets up the 360 beds. So that's just a side note here. And I'm just getting this, so I haven't.
Maybe Felicia can check that out too for us and report back to us with it. Thank you.
I can address that right now.
Okay.
Commissioner. So the ordinance does do the 360 set aside. I know I mentioned a set aside earlier and I didn't give the amount. So the ordinance sets aside 360 beds, 180 for 36th District Court and 180 for the out county courts. And then it also does that per diem rate based on the charges that they're held in for the county. With regards to the millage itself, as I indicated, the millage does not specifically address jail bed set aside. Is for, I think, the acquisition and construction of and operation of jail and juvenile facilities. Though I was told, and I have heard over the years, that there was a connection between the two as far as the county trying to, there was some discussion and connection between that ordinance and that set aside in the support for the millage. But again, that was many, many years ago, and that's only hearsay. Though I think that those who were around back then may be able to give you, like there may be some commissioners who may be able to offer some more personal, direct insight as to how that all played out.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes. Commissioner
Varga.
Varga. Yes.
I know that many discussions have gone over the years that I've been here. The ones that I hear mostly from the local governments are that they really don't want to put someone in to a Wayne County jail and then have to go get them for court maybe the next day. So it's almost more economical for some of them to in-house them for a day or two. So they don't send them because they don't have the personnel to transport them. That was an issue I know in some of my communities in the past. So it could be financial on the locals, that it may cost them more in officer hours to transport than maybe to keep them at the jail. I'm not sure though, but this is what I was hearing. So
Yeah.
I will check with my locals, see why they're not doing it.
Okay. And I know one of the
Thank
things.
you for the great Thank you for the great presentation today. I learned a lot, and thank you for addressing my questions about the communication. That's all.
Thank you for being on the committee and bringing those things forward. And if there's not any other questions, we'll close our portion and go to move the agenda and go on to public comments. I think that's next.
We're actually moving
Madam
on
Clerk?
to item E, Chair, such other matters as may be properly submitted before the committee.
Are there any such other matters? I didn't receive anything. Does anyone have any such other matters? Seeing none, we'll move on to F.
We're moving to item F, public comments.
Is there anyone online from the public that wishes to make a comment or ask a questions? Is there anyone from the public that wishes to make a comment? Can you make sure everyone is unmuted, Madam Clerk?
I've asked everyone to unmute.
Okay. I'll once again ask any questions from the public, anyone that's online that hasn't spoken already. If there's not, we'll close public comments. Were there any, I should say before I close public comments, were there any emails that you received, Madam Clerk?
No, I did not receive any.
Okay. And move the agenda to adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move adjournment, Ken Locke.
Support, Mareki.
Thank you. And thank you all for joining us today. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good one.
We're adjourned.